Hey, what's up guys? My name is Marcus Stewart and welcome to Call It in the Ring. We got a wrestling and recap discussion of last night's Smackdown Live. It's August 28th show 2018. Before we get to that, thanks for listening and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also do that on iTunes. Marcus Writes About Games. When you want to search for that, you can do the same on Podbean. Same name, Marcus Writes About Games. Appreciate your support. And first, we kicked the show off with the New Day coming out to celebrate their fifth tag team championship win, overcoming the Bludgeon Brothers last week. And they're still in Toronto, Canada, which is fantastic because much like Monday Night Raw, the Toronto crowd was super jazzed for everything throughout the night. The highlight of the night, which was the catchphrase of another Canadian, Chris Jericho. So it still kind of came full circle, in a way. My mistake. Anyways, random tangent. New Day comes out, celebrates, pancakes abound. They're super happy. They talk about how, they've been waiting for this moment for a long time to get to 5-time. And they kind of start gearing up to do the Booker T five-time catchphrase, which brings out the actual Booker T, but as King Booker. Surprisingly, yes, King Booker makes his grand return, much to the delight of the Toronto crowd. A giant Booker T chant starts up. And if you're not familiar with King Booker, that was a gimmick that Booker T, WWE Hall of Famer Booker T had back in 2006. After he won the King of the Ring tournament that year, he, much like a lot of wrestlers who win King of the Ring, really let it go to its head and transformed himself into a monarch. And it was hilarious because he had this terrible fake British accent, had this robe and crown and scepter. His wife became Queen Sharmell, and they ruled the Smackdown Kingdom, and he even had his own court with Finlay and William Regal for a while. And as ridiculous as the character was, it actually got Booker his only world championship in the WWE, and he held that belt for definitely the majority of 2006 as the King. And man, at the time it was hilarious and kind of stupid, but fans like it, so it was cool to see King Booker come back. And it fit perfectly here because he gets in the ring. The New Day is losing their minds, of course. And King Booker decides that he's going to coordinate their 5th title win because, of course, like I said, Booker T knows a thing or two about winning things 5 times. And he, says that he asked them to all take a knee. And he's going to do like a knighting ceremony. And he knights all 3 of them. He declares Xavier Woods, Xavier the Wise. Kofi is Kofi the Brave. And then when he gets to Big E, he's just Big E. Much to Big E's disappointment, who grabs the mic and says, hey, how come I don't get a cool name? And Booker points out that, well, you got a nickname. It's Big. You're Big E. Like, that's your descriptor. And Big E says that he's not taking that as an answer. And he says that Booker has gone full Saxton on him, which I don't totally get. I'm assuming that's an inside joke of some sort. I know Byron Saxton's not the greatest, but I can't remember any specific reference in terms of what they're talking about, unless he said something before that I may have not noticed. But it seemed like an inside thing. But it was very funny. And then Booker does his classic where he starts to freak out. Starts to become the old Booker T, saying, you didn't just say that. You didn't tell me. You did not just say that. And but eventually he calms down and names them all official 5-time champions. And it's a fun segment. It's a cute segment. Afterwards, all 4 of them hit spinneroonies with Big E not really doing a spinneroonie, but needing to be spun by his New Day members. He just lays on his back, and Woods and Kofi just kind of spin him around. But this was fun. This is a really, really fun way to open the show. New Day would not leave, though. They would be on commentary for the first match of the night. The first of what will be 2 triple threat tag team championship matches to determine the new #1 contenders. At least I'm thinking so, because I think that... Oh, actually, because I was going to say, like, don't the Bludgeon Brothers have a rematch clause? But I believe that Eric Rowan is injured, and so they won't be able to challenge immediately, so they need new #1 contenders in the meantime. So the plan is that they're going to have 1 triple threat tag team match, triple threat tag team match tonight. So many T's in that name. And then next week will be another triple threat tag match, and then the winners from those 2 will, I assume, face each other, and then the winner of that will become the #1 contenders. So this first one is The Bar taking on Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, taking on the Colognes. Remember the Colognes? Primo and Epico. They exist. They're still alive, and apparently the reason we haven't seen them, or at least we haven't seen Epico in particular, we've seen Primo once every Halley's Comet passing, but apparently Epico has been out with a shoulder injury. I was not aware of this. I'm not aware of Primo and Epico's general existence. So, but they are back tonight, and this was a it was a fine match. Good, good way to open the show. Primo and Epico got a nice showing, especially towards the end. They're hitting backstabbers all around. I thought the club, which is Gallows and Anderson, I thought they were going to pull it out. I don't know why. I just had this feeling they were cooking for a bit, hitting double team moves on both teams, but it was the Bar picking up the win. Not the biggest surprise in the world, but Bar is a good team. So they will face whoever wins next week's triple threat tag team match. 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 Okay. I'm trying to see if it's as difficult to say as I feel like it is. Triple threat tag team. Anyway, so, and then after the match, the Bar gets in the New Day's faces. New Day on commentary was fine. It was the same thing as the last time they were on commentary. It was mostly the regular commentary team calling the match, and then occasionally they would show a little inset, and you get to hear what the New Day saying. I feel like if you're going to do that, just let New Day call the whole match. I mean, you already got, a whole 2 hours of the regular team. Let New Day have this one match completely to themselves, because probably would be really, really funny. So, speaking of that triple threat tag team match, Paige is backstage, and she is with Rusev Day, which is, Rusev, Lana, and Aiden English. And she says that they're going to be in that match next week, along with Sanity and the Usos. Rusev is very pleased, and he assumes that Lana is responsible for putting this together. Lana corrects him and says that Aiden was the one that did it. Rusev is really happy with Aiden. Aiden's really happy with himself, and Lana is happy with both of them. And Paige is probably happy too, because she's around these happy people. The cameraman is probably happy because he gets to film happiness. And I'm happy because I'm watching all of these happy things happening at once. Happy at once. Happening at once. It's almost a pun. So, cool. Jeff Hardy comes out, and he's got some face paint with RKO painted on the side, on one side of it. And he's calling out Randy Orton. He says that he has been reawakened. He's kind of said this before, where he feels like the Jeff Hardy of old, and that he is broken, and he is, he is done with Randy Orton. He is ready to, he wants to fight him. Let's do this right now. Randy Orton comes out, says that Jeff should be smarter than, to think that he would do that on his watch. Randy will strike when Randy feels that it's right. And, when he does, he's going to end Jeff. He appreciates that Jeff says that he's responsible for his reawakening, but it's not going to mean anything once Randy, knocks him off his pedestal. And he goes to leave, and Jeff stops him, yells at him, says, no, we're not, that's not how this is going down. And then he issues the challenge for Randy Orton, saying that they are going to settle this once and for all at Hell in a Cell, in a Hell in a Cell match. And I remember said last week that SmackDown had 3 viable matches that they could put in the cell, but this one AJ and Joe and Charlotte and Becky. And this looks like it's got the Smackdown one. This one went out. Fine. Sounds good. It's kind of cool for Jeff, because I think I've said this before. I've heard Jeff in podcasts say that the Hell in a Cell was his last kind of, his last real bucket list in terms of like WWE, and like he's always wanted to be in a cell match, and particularly to try to jump off of the cell, and now he will get the chance to do that. So that's exciting and terrifying at the same time. So man, if he's gonna try to hit a swanton off the top of that cage, I hope they got. I mean, Shane's done it twice and he's been fine, but and Jeff has always been fine when he does these crazy things, contrary to just, you know, odds. But beef up those crash pads on the table that he decides to jump onto. That's gonna be sick. So cool for him. You know, enjoys killing himself. Carmella's backstage being interviewed by Renee Young. Says that Charlotte Flair never pinned her, so she will win. She's beaten Charlotte Flair twice now, and third time's going to be the charm. When Carmella goes to leave, R-Truth shows up, still searching for Carmella, wanting to pin her so that he can get a title shot. And Ty Dillinger chases after him, because Ty Dillinger is, I guess, like his best friend now or something, and is like, dude, you know, why? Ty Dillinger then looks up at the sky and says, "This is my life." Which it is. This is your life, Ty. I barely remember that you exist until R-Truth comes out. This brings us to our next match. Naomi taking on Billie Kay, one half of the Iconics. This is a rematch of sorts from last week where Naomi took on Peyton Royce and lost due to interference from Billie. So she's going to try to switch things up and take on Billie this week. The Iconics make fun of Toronto, saying that the Raptors are going to have a terrible basketball season. And this is a relatively short match. Naomi loses again because of Peyton interfering and giving Billie the win. It's always nice to see non-title women's feuds. I mean, calling this a feud, so to speak, is kind of being generous, but you know, at least it's something, because sometimes WWE feels like they can't focus on anything that isn't revolving around a title. So it's all, you know, it's nice to have side stories going on. If I had to guess, I would imagine next week Naomi will face them in a tag match because she will be tired of this nonsense and find a woman who's not doing anything to tag with her. So time will tell if I'm right. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe, their rematch for the WWE Championship, is made official for Hell in a Cell. It is not a Hell in a Cell match, which it kind of doesn't have to be. You've already got two scheduled for the card. You've got, you know, the Smackdown and then the Roman Reigns Braun Strowman match. They could probably throw a third in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I'm wondering who that would go to. They're in a good spot because there's a lot of feuds that could actually, for one of the maybe the first time ever that I can remember, there's multiple feuds that could take place or be settled inside of the cell and feel appropriate, which is something that WWE has struggled with since they turned Hell in a Cell into an annual pay-per-view. And I would still prefer if it wasn't an annual pay-per-view. I'm of the mind that the cell should be a once-in-a-while thing. It's reserved for only the most personal of rivalries. But, of course, you know, that it's been about 9 years since the pay-per-view was born, so it's probably not going to go away, at least not in the foreseeable future. But just a random little tangent. I almost called her Brie Bryan. Brie Bella and Daniel Bryan come out to the ring, and they talk about how Miz is a terrible actor at everything, and of course Bryan gets a giant god ovation by the hot Toronto crowd, and you know. And Bryan saying that, you know, he can't even act like a man. He can't act like a wrestler. He can't even act like he's brave because, you know, when he wanted to fight him, he had to hide behind his wife. And, you know, he cheats for his matches. But, you know, he didn't count on getting punched in the face by his wife. Brie gets a big chant of her own, which is how you could tell that a crowd is a good crowd and they're super hot. Is that Brie Bella got maybe the best ovation I may have ever heard for her, at least with her in the ring. I mean, she's gotten chance not being there whenever, like, Bryan's return speech when he mentioned her, but this was kind of cool to see for her. I like Brie. I've always preferred Brie to Nikki. She's less annoying to me. And, you know, Brie say, hey, you know, even though I went out to kill Maurice, I settled for beating up Miz, which still felt pretty good. And Bryan dropped a cute line saying, like, you know, it's not acting when I say that watching her do that was kind of hot. And they both say that they're gonna, you know, they're gonna beat up Miz and Maurice. And this brings out Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega to interrupt. Vega introduces Almas to them, saying that, you know, it's kind of cool to be in the ring with two legends like Brie Bella and Almas. And it's like, whoops, sorry, Bryan. And challenges them to a match, or challenges Bryan, I should say. Almas gets to speak a bit here. His English is still a little shaky. Honestly, I only understood maybe half of what he was saying, but you know, it's a work in progress, and it's, you know, nice to hear him speak a bit. It's only going to help him a bit more, but of course, Zelina should still be his dominant mouthpiece because she's a great heel manager. And the crowd is really happy to hear about this match. Bryan is more than happy to do it, but he says that he is not the general manager anymore, so he can't just make matches. And says if only there was someone back there that could come out here and make this official. And he waits for a bit, and Paige does not come out. And at least a little funny thing where he's just like, well, that was embarrassing. He's like, normally when I was GM, I would have already been out here. And then Paige comes out looking very winded. And she says, you know, you don't realize, Bryan, that my office is actually pretty far away and you don't have to run out here in heels, but I'm here. And she tries catching her breath, and then she makes the match, and we get Bryan versus Almas for the first time ever, which on paper sounds damn good. And it was damn good, at least what we got of it. Man, these two are so smooth, and they meshed together so well, like just right out of the gate. Andrade hit his Tranquilo, which is when, you know, when he dives into the ropes and catches himself and just kind of poses. And for the first time, Bryan actually drop kicks the shit out of him and knocks him out of the ring, which is, I always wondered, like, just go get him, attack him. So I like that Bryan didn't really stand for that. Miz and Maurice are shown watching this match in the back, as they should be, because it was a really good match. And eventually they leave. And, man, like I said, like, these two were going at it. But before we could get a climax, about maybe midway through the match, Miz comes out to the ring by himself. Bryan is distracted, but he does hit the flying goat and takes Miz down, beats him up outside, allowing Andrade to hit a very nice corkscrew dive from the ring to the floor. The crowd really liked that one. He throws him back inside and gets like an inverted DDT from the second rope for a really close near fall. But as Andrade goes for his moonsault, Bryan catches him with the knees, locks in the yes lock, and it has him in it for a long time. But Zelina distracts the referee, which causes Brie to go over and take Zelina down, which then causes Maurice to appear from some other dimension to attack Brie Bella. Bryan lets go of the hold watching his wife get assaulted, which allows Miz to come in from behind and attack him, drawing a DQ, so we don't get a finish to this match. And Bryan and Brie proceed to get basically quadruple teamed by the two, I would say two couples, but Almas and Zelina aren't a couple, but, you know, the two pairings. And they both take, you know, like the finishers and from all four people. Andrade and Zelina eventually leave, and then Miz and Maurice kind of continue beating on the two of them, including like a DDT from Maurice to Brie, and I think Miz hit 2 skull-crushing finales, or 1 or 2 to Bryan, and just leaves him hanging. But that was a smart way to end that match. You know a match is good is when you get like a DQ finish like that, and you're just like, oh man, because even though it was best to kind of protect both guys, because Andrade shouldn't be losing right now, and Bryan shouldn't be either. So DQ was kind of the only way to go, and that's such a big match, like Andrade and Bryan, and kind of giving fans a taste of like what that could be on a bigger stage. It was nice, and not to just kind of give it away for free, of like kind of like the way they did Bryan versus Styles around the time when Bryan came back, because that ended in a DQ as well. So, leaving the door open to revisit later. We go to the back, and Renee interviews Charlotte Flair, who gives a very passionate and intense speech saying that Becky is acting entitled, and that, she says she deserved the title, but you don't deserve what you don't win, and that she's not going to apologize for having ambition and wanting to be the best, and she's also not going to apologize for the fact that Becky can't win the big one. That's not her problem. And all of that might sound a little heelish, but it really isn't. I mean, Charlotte's not wrong. She says it very intensely, and this was a good promo because of how genuine it felt, saying that, she's had the, bust her ass to get everything, and pretty much like, like, hey, like subtly saying to like haters that, again, kind of think that Charlotte gets a free ride or is entitled to everything, saying like, no. It's like, I just because I have ambition doesn't mean I'm entitled, and that I've had to bust my ass for everything I've got. So basically, screw you, Becky. I like this. I like this interview. It felt genuine, and it didn't feel like Charlotte was trying to suck up and try to win over fans, since that's been her uphill battle, is trying to be the face in this. Like, she just kind of basically kept it real of like, no, like I aimed at something and I went for it and I won. Like, I didn't cheat. She didn't cheat. So, like, if you got a problem with that, hey, I'm not going to apologize for who I am. So, I like this. AJ Styles comes out, and he promises to beat the crap out of Samoa Joe for his antics and for choking him out last week and targeting his family. And, he says at Hell in a Cell, we're going to do it one more time, but I'm going to win. He says that he's the WWE champion and he calls the shots around here. So as the champion, he wants Samoa Joe to come to the ring right now so that he can punch his teeth down his throat. Samoa Joe instead opts to appear on the Titantron, and he says, nah, I'm not doing that. But what he will do is, since AJ is in the ring and still wants to play like a superhero or a daddy, Joe can be Wendy Styles' new daddy. And then he takes out his cell phone and he calls Wendy Styles. And he basically has a conversation and saying that, hey, I'm just wondering how you feel about me beating up your husband. And it's just, just being a huge dick. And it's some great stuff here, just kind of threatening Wendy that he's going to hurt Styles. And there's a great bit towards the end where he asks Wendy if they're still on for the back-to-school barbecue. And he's like, oh, okay, maybe I'll have to show up to that, And AJ leaves the ring and runs to the back to find Joe. I really hope this actually leads to next week, like Samoa Joe showing up at AJ's house, and then maybe AJ and him getting into a big fight at AJ's house. Kind of like Randy Orton and Triple H back in, 2009, when Triple H invaded Randy Orton's home and they had that just giant brawl. Maybe we could do something like that. Let's see. AJ eventually goes backstage and he can't find Samoa Joe, much to his chagrin. And this brings us to our main event of the night, Charlotte Flair versus Carmella for the Smackdown Women's Championship. As soon as the match starts, the crowd starts a giant "We Want Becky" chant. And this match was good. In fact, maybe Carmella's best singles match to date. Maybe she was really good here. Charlotte's still better, but Charlotte's one of the best ever. So, but they had a surprisingly good match for Carmella, more so than Charlotte. Carmella Carmella kind of went all out here, hit a suicide dive. You don't often see that from her, as well as at one point she hit a nice top rope Frankensteiner. The crowd was pretty into this when they weren't chanting for Becky. And the match ended with Charlotte pretty much going beast mode and hitting in succession a spear, natural selection, and that probably would have won the match, but she's like, not good enough, and locks in the figure 8 to make Carmella tap out, ending Carmella's run in the title picture, at least for now it seems. And yeah, kind of we'll see where Carmella goes now that she's, after a year or over a year of hovering around the title scene between her Money in the Bank and the having the title, she seems to be out of it, because we'll get Charlotte versus Becky full on. And speaking of Becky, as soon as the match ends, Becky comes out of nowhere, I guess out of the same wormhole that Maurice used earlier, and attacks Charlotte from behind, and the crowd just goes bananas for this. The roof blows off, and she's beating the crap out of Charlotte, and everyone is chanting for Becky. Eventually, Becky grabs a microphone and cuts just a very short but very effective promo, just standing over Charlotte and quietly kind of just saying that she, at Hell in a Cell, she's taking the belt back. And she calls Charlotte a bitch. She's like, I'm taking the belt back. You bitch. She didn't say it that, like, the way I said it, but, you know. She dropped it. And much like last week when she was talking about Charlotte, this felt better than when she was insulting the crowd. Because last week, like I said, like when she insulted the crowd, it felt like she was trying a little too hard. Like she was just kind of like looking at the villain playbook. Whereas when she's specifically only talking about Charlotte, there's more believability to her hatred, her resentment of Charlotte. So, but again, for the third week in a row, or the third show in a row, I should say, Becky is just insanely over. She is yet to be really booed since this has started. And after the match, they kind of show, like, the show ends with Charlotte just kind of propped up in the corner, just staring, just looking, just angry, just pissed. And they lock that shot for a while of just on her face. And the crowd is kind of booing, kind of indifferent, but not really, like, no real sympathy, just kind of like, you know, like they're behind Becky here. And how do you adjust? Do you adjust the story to account for that? Or do you just kind of stick to your guns and just keep going ahead? It's it's a very lopsided feud, or just in terms of crowd support. So I'm curious to see how the match itself plays off. Like if this keeps up, if they try to do like a double turn or anything like that. And there's still the chance that if they do add a third cell match to the show, that this could be one of them. And I'd want to see it probably. So we'll see. We'll see, but yep, that wraps up this week's Smackdown, guys. Not a bad show. I'm going to miss Toronto next week because they have helped carry both these shows to even greater heights. There's really entertaining crowd, and anytime you got a hot crowd, it only makes the wrestling happening in the ring all the more enjoyable. So until next time, Toronto, thank you for a week of awesomeness, and for also not being obnoxious, which is a key point to being a great crowd, is to be awesome, but not focus on putting yourselves over. And they were pretty great at that. So, but thanks for listening, guys. Again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I will be back next week for my Monday Night Raw review. Look for that on Tuesday. If you'd like to listen to my other podcasts, I've got Carving Gaming Rushmores on my YouTube channel, as well as iTunes and Podbean. The most recent episode went up a few days ago, where me and two guests decided our own cast for the Uncharted movie. It's a really fun listen, so take a look at that sometime. And until next time, thanks for listening, guys. Have a great one.